Thank you everyone for joining us for our last analog bases lecture for our analog base track today. We are joined with Jim Secosky. He's a retired teacher from Bloomingfield Central School and Finger Lakes Community College. And he's going to be speaking about Mars Atlas, your gateway to Mars geography and geology. Jim, thank you for joining us.
Thank you. I'm here to describe how you can start to find out everything known about the geography and geology of Mars using Mars Society's Mars Atlas. I've been lucky to use the Hubble Space Telescope, the Mars Global Surveyor, and the Mars Reconnaissance Orbiter as an amateur. People often ask me how I got interested in space. Well, when I was a kid in the 50s, there were several excellent science fiction movies that had a big impact on me. One was Conquest of Space. Another, my favorite of all time, was Forbidden Planet. At the same time, Werner von Braun was the top rocket scientist in the world. He teamed up with Walt Disney to make a series of programs about space. Walt Disney illustrated many physics principles with his cartoon characters, so I was able to understand them pretty easily. First, I want to focus on Martian geography. We have many maps available from this page. To the right are many links to maps. So you could just click on those and get different maps. And first, I want to go to a link, Geography of Mars. And there's many maps and information there. And I'm going to first just show you some of the maps there. Then we'll come back to the other page. Okay. I was looking for a good map on volcanoes, and I didn't like what I saw there, what I found, so I made my own. So here's a map of the main Martian volcanoes. Most of you probably know about Olympus Mons being the highest mountain in the solar system. And it's in an area where you have a whole lot of volcanoes. You have 3 of them in the line there. That's one place where you have a lot of volcanoes. And then on the other side of the planet, there's another group of volcanoes around Elysium Mons. Now that's sort of where the InSight mission is sitting, analyzing the ground, looking for earthquakes or Marsquakes. And then down in the lower part of Mars, in the southern hemisphere, there's a group of volcanoes. They're smaller and they're much older and they're sort of flat. So the word they use for like a flat volcano is Patera. Now, there's an interesting idea that these volcanoes are the result of this impact. So this was a big impact. Hellas Peninsula is a big impact, and it cracked the ground a lot, and perhaps lava, magma, seeped along those cracks and formed these volcanoes. Citrus Major is a volcanic area, and it's very dark. So if you look at Mars through a backyard telescope, you probably have seen Citrus Major. It's a big dark spot there. Now, people usually don't appreciate the size of these volcanoes, so I looked up some information. This little small volcano there, Serenus Stolus, is twice the height of Pikes Peak. I'm in Colorado, and I've been to Pikes Peak several times. It is really, really big. Now, this also is almost the height of Mount Everest, so that's one of the tiny, tiny volcanoes on Mars. So there's our map of the main Mars volcanoes. People often interested in where we landed on Mars. So there's a map of the landings and the dates. And I have a grouping there of the successful ones, which happen to all be from America. And then the unsuccessful come from a variety of countries. United States lost the polar lander and the deep space two. Now the polar lander, it was going down, everything was fine. And then the landing gears snapped into position. And then the computer thought, oh, we're on the ground already. So it turned off the engines, so it crashed. Okay, and there's a lot more information on all this material in that link, Geography of Mars. Another map I made, I was looking for a good map of lakes on Mars and couldn't find one, so here it is. This is a very important topic now because we have a spacecraft, Curiosity, in Gale Crater now, and it is proven that Gale Crater once held a big lake. And we also have another spacecraft going to Jezero Crater, which also contain a lake. It has a nice big delta. These other places are places where many people think there were lakes. There's much evidence for lakes in these places. Now, Erdania Lake contained or could have contained 9 times as much water as all the Great Lakes combined. And there's many craters here in the southern hemisphere, and we figure there's over 200 that had lakes. Okay, now we're going to go back to our original site here. Hopefully this will work. Okay, so we're in Mars Atlas. So if you go to the Marspedia, you can find the Mars Atlas by clicking on the Mars Atlas point. And from this place, you can find, again, more maps, and you can find a lot of other information. We're going to come back to this map in a few minutes here now. So Mars is divided into 30 quadrangles. And here are the names in this table, and they have numbers, and the table gives the latitudes and longitudes. It also gives major features. Now, some of these you can click on and get another article about those things. And there's a nice one about the face on Mars. Probably all been aware of the face on Mars. One of the first pictures we got back from Mars showed this face. It looked just like a face. And since that time, we've taken many pictures of it with different spacecraft. And I think on this article, we have some pictures that are unpublished. Nobody's ever seen those before. We enlarged the face, we enlarged the eyes and the mouth, and it's interesting what you come up with. So you could click on any of these. And also we have a map, another map down here. This is for the names. So you click on this a couple times and you'll be able to see a whole lot of names of different craters and locations. These are the sort of the older ones.
I can't hear you.
Here we have Gale Crater. It's one in the news a lot, and we have a variety of other features, and you could move around. And so this is the place to go if you want to, if you have a name and you want to see where it is. Okay, now we're going to go back to that original map and work from there. Okay, so you can access these quadrangles from this map. So you just put the cursor someplace and you click on it and you get that quadrangle, that map. Now, I've written most of these quadrangles, and I want to show how the way these are laid out. There's 30 quadrangles, and there's an article written about each one of those. And this is where you could find out more information, especially geology. It starts out very simple. See, I think there might be some, we're getting some noise here.
Phil, would you please mute your microphone, please?
Okay, good. So lots of maps here. Quadrangles are oriented. Now the machine sets up an outline of what's in the article, and you click on these different things to get to that topic. And basically the way we arrange this is we've talked about first where the quadrangle is located, and something about its name. Names seem kind of strange. And we talked about the most important things first. And if we have a landing planned or a landing there, it must have been important. And in this quadrangle, we sent Mars Pathfinder. And there's information about Pathfinder there, and along with some links to find out more information. There are pictures, close-up pictures of Pathfinder moving around. I'll tell you a variety of pictures. Now, this is an important quadrangle. We have one landing there, and ExoMars is going to land there in 2022. And we also have another site that somebody might land, and that's Marspedia. Now, Marspedia. Okay, We have a lot of noise.
Bring it up again for me to go up.
Phil, your mic is unmuted.
You get a lot of noise
There
here.
should be a mute all.
I think the host might have a mute all.
Yeah, has the host got a mute all? Click on participants. Oh, you'll have to click on participants. There you go. Click on that button. No, that one. Yeah, you should be. Oh, you don't have a mute. Click on that. No, the host has everybody.
Okay, could the host mute Phil? It's on the participant thing.
Oh,
Yeah, we're getting a lot of noise. Okay, good. Thanks, Phil. Okay, I was distracted. Anyway, Marspediaorg is an interesting place. We wanted to land there a number of times. It didn't make the cut. It was considered for at least two different landings, and it didn't quite make the cut. We went other places instead. And then we like to talk about the major features. Each quadrangle has its special features. I took a lot of pictures with the high rise through High Wish program. Everybody could suggest pictures through the High Wish program. And it's really exciting to take those pictures. This is one I received, and it shows layers, which are very, very common in this area. Layers are important because they indicate there probably was water there. So layers often form under lakes. I like to show some sort of scale, and I like to use a football field. So this is about the size of a football field on that picture. There's research saying there's possible lakes in the area, and many layered sediments, many layers. And again, this is important because it might have been indicative of lakes. I like to make a lot of maps, and this map is one that's it shows just important things. The other map we showed had pretty much everything named there. This one has just important things. So we have several craters named after important scientists, Rutherford, Becquerel, and Curie. They were dealing with radioactivity. And then there's a lot of good research about certain things. Dr. Sagan he has a crater named after him. There's a region that's here and other places called chaos. And chaos is kind of interesting. It's where the ground exploded with water, and the water flowed along and caused floods, and it streamlined things. So you can see how the water probably came out of the ground here, and then it made these islands streamlined. We'll see that later on. And so we have some of those chaos regions indicated. And some of these craters that are indicated, there's been a lot of research there. A lot of these things have a lot of historical background. Yeti crater is one, and we have a picture of Yeti crater here. We saw this early on, and scientists looked at this, they got excited because it looks like an asteroid struck into mud, because the way it flowed out, instead of the material just being thrown in the air and then dropped down, it went out like in these lobes, like it was in mud. So we saw this and we thought, well, there might be a lot of frozen water there or something. And then there's more pictures. I use various pictures. High rise, that has the most resolution of any. And then I use a lot of CTX images. Those are wide field, and they're from Mars Reconnaissance Orbiter, and they're really good. We have almost complete coverage of the planet right now. And then I take a picture, a wide angle, and then here's a picture from the inside, showing it more detail. Lots of layers in this area. Mojave crater is important because it looks like it rained there. So in some places we think the water just gushed out of the ground, but in some places it looks like there was rain, and that's one of the ones that shows evidence of rainfall. I have lots of maps here. So here shows, it's a topographical map. So the blue represents a low area and the red is a higher area. And it shows the relationship between several craters, which will be discussed a little bit lower down. So these are pictures. Here's my little football field here in this picture. And some of these show faults with the arrows. Remember, every time you see these layers, it means there may have been underneath a lake, water involved. And I found lots of faults. And Danielson Crater is one of my favorite places on Mars, and I think we should have a national park there someday. Here shows my little football field, and I can imagine myself climbing up there. I'm one of these guys who likes to explore. So this has tons and tons of layers. And here we see a picture with dust devil tracks. And dust devil tracks can be very pretty, and simply a dust devil drops down and it exposes the dark undersurface. Lots of faults here. Now, some of these are very colorful. The color is sort of artificial, and we picked colors and color arrangements to bring out the mineral composition. And this is not exactly what you would see if you were there. Mars is kind of a drab color, but if you manipulate the colors, you'll get more color to things. And there's a reason for it. It's not to fool anybody. It's just to bring out certain minerals and to make things more clear for the eye. Here's some more historical photos. The one on the left there is one from Viking, and we saw this and we thought, wow, there must have been a lot of water there. So this is where the water came out of the ground in the chaos regions. And we have this here because it's one of the first ones where we saw that on. You see these pictures in many books, many magazine articles. Vernal crater is the one we mentioned. There's maybe hot springs there, and that's important because the hot springs could have life, or they once had life, and the life can be very well preserved in hot springs. You have silicon stuff that can preserve cell structure. So these are interesting places to visit someday. Some places, some things are very interesting and mysterious, like linear ridge networks. So these appear at different parts of the planet, and they're narrow ridges, and they're elevated, and they often have these like right angle intersections. We're not exactly sure what causes those now. There's several different ideas. So that's an idea in progress. And we have a lot on the chaos here. Chaos can be very pretty. It looks like an interesting place to hike around. So this quadrangle has a lot of chaos and a lot of layers. And here's a picture. I use a variety of pictures to show you what the surface looks like. My objective here is to show you what it looks like in this area. Say like you were flying over with a plane or a helicopter. And so with the Themis, that's on board the Odyssey spacecraft, launched in 2001, and it's still going strong. Almost 20 years later, it's still going strong. You can make various colored pictures with this. And I found this one, I thought it was kind of neat. So there's this channel here, and it's ending on a cliff. So this is a hanging valley, and it could have been a waterfall. Much evidence of water on Mars in the past. And then we have a section at the end, other landscapes in the quadrangle, and those, they may not be real typical, but they're kind of interesting. Here's a cap rock breaking up, and the shadows look real nice there. And these rocks are breaking up with straight edges. That's common with some rocks. There's another Themis image, and the way this one goes is you have a topographical map on one side with a box showing the location of the close-up picture. And in some pictures, you don't appreciate them too much until you enlarge them, like this one. So this is kind of neat, I think. You have these light tone rocks, and they're surrounded by dark material. And my guess is that the rocks were laid down, and the rocks broke up into pieces. And then later on, sand got blown into the places between. So it makes a nice little picture there. Jump too far ahead here. Okay, here we go. Okay, now this this particular quadrangle is the site of where the Martian was played out in. Matt Damon, the astronaut on Mars, he had troubles, and he had to do all sorts of things, and and hike around, and he drove his rover all over the place. So this shows the path, and almost all this takes place in this this area, and that's the movie. They consulted NASA a great deal to make that movie. So there's some accuracies there. The problem is the wind. There's not too much powerful winds on Mars. And I want to mention about our last features on these quadrangles. All these, we have a lot of references. Wikipedia has been criticized because they say, well, anybody could write anything. It's just people's opinions. They don't quote anybody. So I'm showing you some of the references I use for this. And we're using fairly good references like Journal Geophysical Research. There's the Journal Science. We have Icarus in places, and Nature. So these are peer-reviewed journals. So that means that a scientist does research, and then he writes a paper, describes it, and then he submits it to a journal. And that journal then submits it to a group of people that judge it to see if it's worthy of publication, if it's maybe true or maybe worthy of publication. It's not just somebody's opinion. And on this particular place, we have 79 references. So I try to use a lot of references here. Now, a lot of these references are original references. So if you want to find out the nuts and bolts of things, you want to go to the people that first did the research. There's usually a section here that shows the some links to other articles in Marspedia, like oceans on Mars. We have a lot of information about possible oceans on Mars. Sometimes there's some good books on the subject. And last, we have these external links. Now, in this case, there are many little clips, movie clips that show like how it would be if you're flying over with a helicopter or in a plane. And I have the time on some of these. Some of these are only like a minute or two, and that's the ones where you're flying over the planet. Besides that, I try to find some very involved talks or very involved links. And we have two of them here. Vic Baker is one of your top experts on water on Mars, also Steve Clifford. So we have long lectures by those guys. There's one 50 minutes long, one's over an hour long. So if you want just beautiful pictures and maps, you come here. And if you want really detailed information, you come here. This is at least a starting point for your research. Okay, now we go. Now I'm done, and I go here. Nope. You want to go back to your PowerPoint? I want to go back to yeah. I think here. Yeah. Nope. Okay, I'm having a little technical difficulties here. Oh yeah, this one. Okay, and that's it. What I planned. Anybody have any questions?
Thank you, Jim. That's a fabulous resource for learning about all things Mars. We do have a one question so far. To our audience members, if you have questions for Jim, please type those into the chat, and we will ask those of him. We do have a question from Jick, who asks, is the Oxyopalus Quadrangle one of the most sufficient locations for life on Mars?
Well, it's one of the locations, I would say. You have the vernal crater there that might be a really top-notch place to study, and those layers might be places to go. And I think there's maybe some other better places, like we are in Gale Crater now. That might be a little better place to go. And we're going to Jezero Crater. That's a real good place to go. Those are lakes. But I'm thinking that Vernal Crater might be a good place to go because of chance of life being preserved, or remnants of life being preserved in the silica.
Excellent. Inara comments, it would be a great, this would be a great resource to educate our youth, and we could build a lab unit around it. What can we do to get this included in schools?
Well, Now the Marspedia is basically not copyrighted, so a teacher could take anything from this and use it. Like this particular, all these pictures, we went through those pictures in Oxa Polis, and a teacher could just lift any of those pictures and use them.
That is a great resource, especially for people doing research. Mark asks, do you have any pictures that show changes of the geology over time?
Okay, I'm not sure what he means. I've been doing this for a little more than 10 years, and I have none that I took early on and then later on that show any changes. Now, there are pictures though that show those. There's many pictures that show changes in sand dunes and in the ripples on sand dunes. There's many pictures we have of gullies that are changing. We have hundreds of new craters formed. So they have pictures where you don't have a crater and then you have a small one there. Then what's really neat is a lot of them, the craters hit into a layer of ice. So you got this little crater formed that's new, and there's white on the bottom. And then after a few months, the white is gone, and that means the ice disappeared. So we have a variety of pictures that show these changes. I don't have them. Actually, I didn't take any like that, but I'm thinking, you know, Marspedia, there are a few. I know I put in ones with the craters that were changing. So they were white on the bottom first, and then the white disappeared. And there's pictures of with Phoenix landed, and they dug into the ground, and there was these little white chunks in there, and then they disappeared because they were ice. So we have small amounts of change, and that's a good question. Thank you.
That's a good answer. Elaine asks, with reference to MGM in the resources list here, is that a reference to Metro-Goldwyn-Mayer, the movie company, or is that something
Yes,
else?
they said I had to put references. Those images, they're the picture, the movie poster things. They are public domain, but somebody said I got to put the resource anyhow.
All right. Oh, so that's a reference for something that you used earlier.
Yes.
I have a question. What is the process for updating and revising the Marspedia materials?
Well, basically you just get in there, and I think you need to sign in someplace, and then you have to register, basically, a simple thing. And then you anybody that's young knows how to do it. You go in, and there's a place you click to edit, and then you click that edit, and then you get every single word and reference and everything on there, and then you just go in there and you make your changes, and then you save your changes. It's pretty, once you get started into it, it's a pretty simple thing.
So it's not something that happens at a regular interval. It's just as people have material to contribute.
Yes, now I do a lot of that. So I basically go by what's in the news. So if there's new research coming out, in a few days, I'll probably have a reference to it on Marspedia. I've been doing Marspedia a lot. And so I follow the news releases. So if there's a news release from NASA, I'll try to find the original source and get to the original journal article and put something in there for that. In some cases, it's just a reference to it, because a lot of this stuff, it tells us that we're on the right path. But in some cases, maybe a week later, I'll have a whole new section on that. So I would say that if new research comes out, it's on Marspedia in a week or so. Wikipedia is almost the same way too. We have people that they could get those changes. If you're watching the news and everything, you can get changes on these sites real quick. And that's the advantage of a site like this, an online encyclopedia, as opposed to a hard copy. You can change this in just a matter of a couple days. Actually, I put many changes on within 24 hours.
So it's, if I hear you correctly, it sounds like you're combing through all of this information and integrating all of this yourself.
Yes.
That's a pretty monumental project.
Well,
Thank you. Thank you for doing that.
You know, you got to go for what you like.
Yeah. Well,
I ran
that's
races and I ran marathons. You know, why be halfway?
well, that's a great work. Thank you for doing that.
Thank you.
Does anybody else have any other questions for Jim here? Jake asks, would you consider ever expanding your team in the near future to get more focused results in such presentations?
I'm not sure what it means. I'm always open to spreading the word about Mars. I haven't had a chance. I have troubles traveling. Otherwise, I would have been giving more of these talks at other conferences. But since it's online, I could do this pretty easily.
I think he's kind of asking about having a team to work on maintaining the database.
Oh yes, yeah. But actually, we do have a group that works on that already. If you go to Marspedia, there's a group that does work on there, and there's information about, you know, they have a number of topics that like people to research. I'm one of the few people who do a lot of the geology, but they have a lot of people working on many different topics, and we could use a lot more people.
Is there a link on there for people to get involved with that?
Let's see. Should be. No, let me just give me a second here. Okay, there it is. So the link would be Marspedia.org. So Marspedia.org will bring you to the home page. And if you did this whole link here, you would get to this page. So if you get to this page, you could click on the home and then get more information. And they have a list of needed articles. So we have a number of topics that people, they want people to write about. And you can often take an article we have and just add to it. I did that for many things. Many of the features, somebody started doing it and then they stopped. And then I came in later and put more research, more stuff in it. And what happens is the person puts something in, they put all that is available then. But then 5 years later, there's more information to put in there. So we always need people to add to these. And but I would suggest you go to this site, marspedia.org, and go to the home page, and there's a lot of information there, a lot of links.
Excellent. Thank you very much, Jim. That was a great presentation. That's all the time that we have for questions in this session. But thank you very much for your participation to the audience and for the presentation, Jim. That was great.
Thanks, Lee. Have a good day. Thank you all for being here.